My name's Jon Olson. I'm an ordained pastor in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. I'm on, well, my neurologist likes to call it medical retirement. Most people would know it as long-term disability, which is an odd thing. I think it'll be 2 years this, I think. It was in the fall, I think. So 2 years this fall. So I would have been 41 at the time. I'm 43 now. Pastor Adrian had asked me to preach actually on the second part of the creed, which is about believing in Jesus. And I told him that I don't know that I'll have the energy to preach, but also speaking about why I believe in Jesus. I don't know that I have the emotional energy to do that. I'm a fairly private person, so getting up and sharing something so personal, it's uncomfortable for me. Actually, just doing interviews, uncomfortable for me. My hope is, though, that it'll be useful to other people. So the reason I'm on medical retirement is so that I have multiple sclerosis. I've been diagnosed since 2009. I've been in chronic pain for 11 years in November, and that's kind of a mind-numbing number if you start multiplying 365 times 10. And unfortunately, I have daily symptoms. So I felt cruddy yesterday, I feel cruddy today, and I'll feel cruddy tomorrow. And that's kind of a hard thing. And to back up just for a moment, I first began to believe in Jesus when I was in the 3rd grade. I went to Sunday school, and I wish I knew the lady's name. She really taught us in this version of the Bible. The Good News version has these little pictures, and it's in, I don't know, easier language. She just really taught us a lot about the Bible and had us highlight and underline, and we'd race to get different passages. She'd say, like Philippians 2, and we'd all flip, and whoever got there first got like a felt bookmark, and it's a 3rd grader. Felt bookmark was like, whoa, big time. I still have that Bible, and then if you really won, you got a little like button occasionally, and then she had us put different Bible verses in the front, and then put a little word by like hope or fear or whatever. And so I learned to read the Bible regularly when I was 3rd grade, so that's 9-ish. Then in college, my first year in college, it was just hard, and I was struggling, and I was thinking about, I didn't really have a church, and I was thinking about leaving my faith and trust in Jesus just totally behind. And I went to the Bible because that's what I was taught when I was 9. And I came across a passage in Galatians 1 that talked about how quickly, you're deserting the one who loved you. And it was just a huge moment for me where my faith took this whole new dimension of being real. And Jesus wasn't so much an idea or maybe someone that I knew about, into someone that I knew. And that began to fuel a desire to want to share that with other people, and eventually went on, obviously, to seminary. And being in ministry and watching Jesus change other people's lives certainly helped my trust in Jesus. So for a while, I probably would have answered, well, I love him because, he loves me, or he's done this. And I can see or have seen so many ways in which his hand has been part of my life. But my disease just took this. It was going along so slow for so long, and then it just kick-started. And just got worse and worse. And one Sunday I preached and was lying down that afternoon, which is not uncommon, and all of a sudden I couldn't speak. My body was shaking. I literally fell out of the bed. I couldn't cry out for help, and it was like my body was just exploding. Well, it was kind of imploding, really, and that was the end of my serving a congregation. And there's a lot of things that come with that. We use the word "I am a pastor." I tried to say you don't need to work as a pastor, but as a man, even though we have a disability package that's really quite generous, actually, it's not the same as actually going and working. It's not the same when you can't interact with your kids in the same way. So there's all those dimensions to it. And there's the physical dimensions, and my desire isn't so much to have a pity party. I think sometimes people don't realize, because everybody's MS is different, but how really nasty, just nasty this thing is. So our nerves have a myelin sheath, which is basically insulation around electric wire, and it doesn't work right. So there's, scar tissue in our brain, and then there's this myelin. So in my foot, for example, the myelin sensory, so I don't have a lot of feeling in my feet, hands, causes balance issues. And then, with that means that, if you have a sparking, cord or whatever, well, that's a pain receptor, and that just doesn't go away, So there's, those effects. So there's that's called neuropathy. So you've got all that going on. Also, like for myself, you have spasticity, which is muscles that don't relax properly, or that spasm, spasticity. So imagine having pulled a muscle, but having it always be pulled. That hurts, makes motion more difficult. I'm fortunate in that my body has kind of a built-in short circuit system, but it's a conscious paralysis, literally, where when it was first happening and I didn't understand my body at that point well enough, I would just literally fall over until somebody touched me, depending on how long it could be there, 50 minutes, 70 minutes, 80 minutes, 90 minutes, where you think about moving something and it won't move. So I remember some times where I just was sitting out in the backyard, couldn't move. I've since come to understand those and preemptively rest. But you have to be mindful driving. And that's an odd thing. And especially, I play tennis at Pacific Lutheran University, and I taught tennis. So I've been athletic, and all of a sudden have your body do those things. You have a fatigue. It's hard to understand for people that I'm always tired. And then there's the difference between being the usual tired to soul-crushing fatigue, where you just can't, have to lay down. There are times that I'll get my kids ready to school, I'll drop them off, which is a 7-minute drive from the house, and then I need to maybe go to the pharmacy and get some medication. But I've got to, literally drop my son off in the drop-through line and then pull off and then take a 15-minute nap because I'm too exhausted to drive the extra 10 minutes safely. Sometimes bedtime is 5:30. If there's been a flare-up, which is an intense attack, those take like 6 months to recover from, to 2 years. So I just had one, and the recovery time is going to be around Thanksgiving. So that means, yesterday I slept, took 4 or 5 naps, anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour and a half. The slowness of thinking, the slowness of speech when you try to get into a group setting, 15, 20 people, can't get in because you can't speak well enough, quick enough, fast enough. So that affects your social dimension. It affects your social dimension when people that live with you, my wife and my kids, parents, friends. I mean, there's all these dimensions. When I had my, being done with work, I lost my church community. I mean, I lost my job, but because you can't continue to be in the same church you were serving, so most of the time when we're hurting, we look to our church. Well, that's gone. And it takes a while to get into a new church. Then there's sometimes where the signals just don't work. My weak side's my left side. So that means, there are times that I'm walking with a walking stick or a cane or whatever. And we use walking sticks because the kids think cane makes me look too old. So, and then there's just the mental issues, and the mental health issues, and it's just a depressing kind of thing. Let alone wherever the lesions have done to cause, permanent changes in your physiology. So there's all these dimensions. There's not, and then of course, then there's the spiritual pounding. I was doing this. Now I'm not doing any of it. But the Bible calls lament basically just being like, God, what the heck's going on? All that's there, and it's a cycle because it's not a predictable disease. There are things that happen. There are all kinds of stuff, and there's no escaping. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to take a day off today." There's no escaping it. So a lot of times when people ask you how you're doing, okay is fine. Because it's just nobody. I don't really want to get into all of it, and yeah, it's just yucky, and then there's just so many things that constantly come at it. It's really. I mean, I could spend the whole time talking about it, and it's not really about that. But it's just important, I think, to know those things or have a glimpse into them, because it seems to be one of those places when we're in suffering and having a neurological disease. I mean, everything's connected to your brain. It's degenerative, that has no cure, and yeah, they have stuff on the horizon maybe then, but 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, well, I try to figure out how I'm going to get through the next 2-3 hours. So, I can't think about 5 or 10 years. It seems like that kind of suffering, and I'm certainly not saying that I have the worse suffering than other people or more, or suffering's not a competition, and if it is, no one would enter it, but it does seem to certain degrees to be part of the human experience, and it does bring up questions, like, but I don't get this. Thought I was serving you and preaching and teaching, and now I'm not doing any of that stuff. What gives? And so And I think a lot of folks, I don't know, when we suffer and suffer a lot over a long period of time, we can just give up or give up in our faith. Or so to stand up with a group, like on Sunday, and say, I believe in Jesus. Well, you do? And is it just to have fire insurance, like just to make sure that when I die I don't go to hell or something like that? Or why do you believe in Jesus? And that's what Pastor Adrian asked, why do I believe in Jesus? And I think I'd rather than use the word believe, why do I trust him? But maybe even more than that, why do I love him? Why do I love him with all my heart, mind, soul, strength? Why do I deeply and passionately love him? Which I do. Doesn't mean I'm a perfect Christian. Oh, heavens no. But you can love somebody and still make mistakes in that. It doesn't mean you don't love them. I mean, I'm not a perfect husband, but I still love my wife. I'm not a perfect father, but I still love my children. So loving Jesus doesn't mean that I'm a perfect follower of his. But I do love him. And I love him more now than I ever have. And my suffering, and a lot of it's humiliating, frankly, is one of the reasons why I love him more. Because I don't have anything else to really prop myself up. I can't look to a successful ministry, or I can't look to, all these things that we kind of look to, not maybe consciously, but subconsciously. We think, oh, this, well, all of a sudden all that stuff's taken away, and you're stuck in bed, and you can't do anything, and you just hurt. There comes a time when, for me, I realized what one of the men I used to visit when I was a pastor in Auburn, he had Parkinson's, really advanced Parkinson's. He was dying, actually. And he would have this extreme form of spasticity where his body would lock up for hours before any kind of medication would come in. And he used to say to me, John, I think about Christ on the cross, and I know that he understands. And I've never forgotten that. And I had MS at the time, but not to the same kind of intensity as now. But when I'm stuck in bed, Jesus is there too. And he's there whether I'm feeling spiritual or not feeling spiritual. He's there whether I've had a good day or a bad day, or whether I perform poorly or not poorly, or I don't even know what those things mean anymore. He's there because he's just gracious. He just gives me favor that I haven't earned, will never earn. But he gets it. He gets it because he's God, and he got it, and he was humiliated by his friends, betrayed, beaten, whipped, mocked, crucified, had the sins of the world put on him. I can't even imagine. I don't even think he'd want me imagining what kind of pain that would entail. So he just really understands. And he's the only one that does. No one else understands. It's not because people don't want to understand. It's not because there aren't compassionate people. It's not because there aren't caring people that I know. I mean, I know a lot of caring people, and the church is full of them. But it's not anything that anyone can understand, because it's, you know, the only people perhaps that can understand are people that walk similar things, but each one of us walks it a little differently. So to understand it completely and understand the depth of it, Jesus just gets all of it. And as frustrated as I've gotten with all of it, and as anger that's come out of it and all that stuff, he just keeps speaking into my heart. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. You're mine. I love you. You're my beloved. Well, I don't feel like I'm beloved. He says, you're my beloved. And because he's not just another person, but he's God, God is saying that I'm his beloved. So the one person whose opinion really matters over everyone else's opinion won't stop calling me his beloved. And even when I struggle sometimes to believe it, it doesn't mean it's untrue. And he opens up this kingdom. He says the kingdom of God is available. He opens this kingdom, which is this whole set of resourcing that comes in all these different ways. It comes in the ability to see beauty in the midst of pain. You know, that the pain and the fatigue and all of that, he's able to work within my heart and within my eyes to see beauty. And so I don't get just stuck with one thing. I don't get stuck with just pain. I don't get stuck with just fatigue. I don't get stuck with just that. But he actually allows me to be able to see the beauty. I saw a river last week. It's gorgeous. The colors were fantastic. I'm so grateful for him. He actually allows me to be grateful for things in spite of that. He gives me joy at times that, you know. So he's not just an idea, because an idea doesn't hold up when, I don't know, the pain gets to be like this. But the person of Christ, I mean, the very real person, and it's his beauty, it's his glory, it's his faith working within me, it's his comfort, it's the gift of his spirit, it's his resourcing. He still teaches me all the time. I mean, if I'm just wanting to learn, he's willing to teach me, shape me, mold me. I believe in him, because I don't have life. I don't have life. I mean, all I would have would be darkness and despair. But he's promised that he's in the darkness and in the despair. I mean, there's no place that's too dark for him. You know, that great psalm we love, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Doesn't matter how dark it is. Doesn't matter how painful it is. Doesn't matter how I think about myself. And this Jesus, it's just beautiful Jesus. One that could leave me alone, but chooses not to. Never to leave me alone. In fact, he wants me to be with him for all eternity. And he was raised from the dead and promises that too. So no matter how long how many years I have to suffer this kind of destruction in my body and all the other things accompanied with it, for all eternity, he's promised me a perfect resurrection body. So then in the midst of all of it, I know I have hope. Like, regardless of whatever the pharmaceutical company comes up with, I will have healing. I'll have it for all eternity. And there's nothing that can stop that, because Jesus is God. And so since he's said it, it's true. He's raised, he's promised us that. It's that great passage in Romans 6 that I think everyone ought to read and reread about being united with Christ. Because then there's a resurrection like his. And so then there's, I can't think of a thing that, and there's just nothing. Everything else we seem to prop ourselves up with that can be taken away. Our money can be taken away. Our status can be taken away. Our bodies can be taken away. Everything seems to be taken away, or can be taken away. But our relationship with Jesus is never taken away, because he's promised it. And so maybe when we say we believe in Jesus, maybe it's all of those things. Maybe it's I have faith in Jesus, I trust Jesus, I love Jesus, my hope is in Jesus because of grace and mercy and kindness and compassion and instruction and teaching. And maybe we say we believe in Jesus because we're talking about a real person. We're not talking about some religious system where we have to earn enough credits, but we're talking about a real person. And the thing about what I'm sharing is I'm not unique in this. There are Christians throughout the world, throughout the centuries, that would tell you about this same Jesus. And they'd say the same things about him, because he's consistent, and what he's offering for me, he offers for everybody that just wants it. Really. So I just have come to the point where there's no other space in my life where I can't do life without Jesus. I used to maybe not want to do life, but now I can't. I just cannot. Everything that allows me to do anything is from his gracious hand. And so I think I've kind of come to that place now. Maybe like Paul had said at one point, he said, the life I live, I live by faith. Or maybe he said, it's no longer I who live, a Christ who lives within me. Because I just think about this getting through the day and getting through the night and getting through the times when it's just, just all of it, and it's Jesus showing up in all the different ways he shows up, making it all happen. So I believe in Jesus because of my personal experience with Jesus, and I believe in Jesus because I've seen the way he is with a lot of other people as well.